game week mode, as nice as the open date was and as needed as it was for us as a football team, for a number of different reasons. I think first and foremost, one of the things we wanted to get out of the open date was the fundamentals. We talked about that ever since we started the season. We were about 2 games in, and we started talking as a staff how excited we were to get to the open date to do a lot of the fundamental work that we need to do. With so many new faces that are on the football field for us this year, it was great to get out and to see some of the young linebackers, to get Tony Johnson all that work, to get Bo Feet that work, guys that maybe haven't had an opportunity to get so much of the game experience, but we're really going to need them for depth as we go into this second half of the season in the final 6 games. To get guys like Pinson and McDonald, 2 junior college safeties, the amount of scrimmage work we got, along with guys like Bryce and Grogan and Woods at the safety position, to see D'Angelo Brooks, to see him get as much work as he did. And one of the things that we tried to do is we put pads on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we probably had over 200 scrimmage reps against each other, with our ones-and-ones going against each other in type of a spring practice mentality, which was really good to get so much of that work. And the same thing on the offensive side of the ball, to see the improvements that Yen Danielson has made, to see Trey Carter getting more and more comfortable in the offense, to see Darryl Brown get so much of that work at safety, to see a lot of these young wide receivers. When you talk about guys like Trent Taylor and Eddie Johnson and Jadrick DeCluitt, who missed most of camp because of a knee injury, to see them get so much of that work. And we came in with some of the injuries we've had at the tailback position, really trying to get Marlon Seats involved. Unfortunately, he got nicked and missed most of last week, but a young guy, Boston Scott, really came to the forefront, got an awful lot of reps, did some really good things, and it's nice to know that he's there with some of the bumps and bruises that we have at the tailback position if we need to go to that for the remainder of the year. So it was really a productive off week, because we got an opportunity to get a lot of these younger guys so much work, but at the same time, we got a chance to get healthy. And I know that's almost talking out of both sides of my mouth, but we were able to take a guy like Kenneth Dixon and really reduce his workload, and a guy like Blake Martin and reduce his workload, and getting a lot of those guys healthy as they've been nicked up and beat up a little bit as we've gone through the season. But continually talk about this team. The attitude and the work habits are the thing that has impressed me most. I think they continue to improve and get better as we move along, but really proud of the attitude that they displayed. It's hard in an open date with no opponent, and you're going out and facing each other and going back into spring ball mentality, but I thought we really had a productive week. Looking at the injury front, having the opportunity to get a guy like Kenneth Dixon, I think, is getting healthy again. I know feels much better than he did when he hurt his knee a month ago, and has kind of played through it, but he's played limited. To see him get a little bit healthier. Blake Martin should be good to go Saturday. He came out and practiced Thursday. He should be good to go this week. Ryan Higgins is cleared to go. He practiced Sunday. He's good this week. He was very limited last week as well. Still a couple question marks. I talked about Marlon Seats. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him yet, if he's going to be available. Andrew Gilliott is getting closer. I think it's very probable that he'll play, but there's still some medical clearance that he's got to go through to be cleared at this point. And Andre Wiggins is doing, right now he's kind of nursing an ankle that we're hopeful that he will be back this week as well. Out is still, Tevin King is still out with that ankle. He will not play this week, and Thad Medford with the knee. But the rest of them, I think, for being in the middle of the season, I think we're relatively healthy coming out of the open date, as expensive as the UTEP game was for us from an injury standpoint. So you get this week, you have the opportunity to get into homecoming. We're excited. I know Trace Atkins is going to have the opportunity to be here to sing the national anthem, which is a real treat for us. I know as a guy that played football here, we're excited to have the opportunity to see him and bring him back. And homecoming's always a neat time on campus when so many of the alumni have the opportunity to come back, interact, socialize, look at the way the campus has changed and reminisce about what it was like years ago when they were in school here. So homecoming's always a feel-good weekend when so many people have an opportunity to come back and see so many of the improvements and upgrades with the campus. And I think those that haven't been back for a while are in for quite a treat when you look at all the new dorms and campus buildings and academic structures that have been built on this campus. I think it's really made some huge strides. So excited about homecoming this weekend and having the opportunity to get in with many of the alumni. Getting into North Texas and looking at North Texas, really impressed with this football team and what they're doing on film right now. I look at it, I start with their staff. I've got great respect for Dan McCarney, just the success that he's had, having the opportunity to be around him. He's a first-class individual, and he's done a great job of building that program at North Texas, and you can see that he is getting into multi-years as they are getting better and better fundamentally, recruiting-wise, upgrading their talent. Right now they're really playing well together as a football team. When you look at them on offense, again, Mike Canales, their offense coordinator, was the offense coordinator of the year when he was at Arizona, had a little quarterback at NC State named Phillip Rivers. He has developed some great talent. He's a great football coach. He's a good mind. I've had the opportunity to be around him a little bit in this business, and great respect for him and Mike Simmons, the offensive line coach, and Michael Grant, the wide receiver coach. I've got a lot of history with a lot of guys on this staff on offense, and really impressed with what they're doing right now. When you look at them as an offense, you'd have to say balance is probably the key. They've had games where they've thrown for 300 yards. They have games where they have run for 300 yards. But I think they're playing really well right now as an offense and doing some things to put up some yards and some points on the board. They've got a quarterback that's completing 68% of his passes. He's a third-year starter. He's got an awful lot of experience, a great head on his shoulders. Mike Simmons' offensive line returns 4 starters off last year's team, playing really well together. You can see just the way that they're communicating, turning back, picking up blitzes, protecting the quarterback. They're doing a really good job with their offensive line. Their running back is by committee. They've got about 3 guys that are carrying the ball for them at different times, always keeping fresh guys in there at running back. And then some wide receivers. They got some big play receivers. I'll talk a little bit more about Chancellor when I get to the special teams, but he is a big play guy that they'll put him at receiver. They'll put him in the backfield, throw him the ball. They're going to try and get him the ball as many times as they can and in many different situations. But they've got a very good, very sound offensive scheme, and I think they're very fundamentally sound, and they're hard-nosed, and they're a very physical group with an experienced quarterback. I think when you look at them on defense and what Skladany's done right now with them defensively, you can just see the progress that they've made from the beginning of the season to where they are now. They are a very simple team in what they do, and that they're a 4-3 base defense with quarter coverage. They've held their last 2 opponents to 7 points, and they're really defensively, they held Middle Tennessee to 7. They also held Tulane to 7, but Tulane had 2 pick sixes for 14 points to win that game 24-21. But I think defensively, they're really playing well. As I talked about them being physical, fundamental, sound, as I said, Skladany is really doing a nice job with them on the defensive side of the ball. They play an awful lot of people. I don't think it's about one superstar as much as it is the power of the pack when you talk about them as a defensive football team. They're statistically, they're a little bit gaudy when you look at them, especially in their last 2 conference games. One of the great things I think Conference USA does to try and get a good evaluation of the entire conference is they keep the statistics of just the conference games. Not everybody that we play, because we played such a wide variety of non-conference opponents. And when you look at this defense, right now they are first in total defense. They're first in scoring defense. They're first in passing defense. They're first in first down defense. I mean, when you look at what they're doing as a defensive football team, they're ranked in the top 3 in almost every statistical category from a conference play standpoint. I've really been impressed with what they've done defensively. Coach McCarney's done a really good job of building this program. I know Frank Wintrich, their their strength coach. We were together at South Florida. Great respect for him and the job that he does, and a lot of respect for this program. I think it's up and coming. They're in the same boat that we are. They're excited about having the opportunity to be in Conference USA with where we're both trying to go with this program. And I think it'll be a great challenge for us on Saturday, but one that we're really looking forward to. Having an opportunity to have the open date and get a lot of that fundamental work, I think not just are the coaches itching to get back into game week and ready to play a game, but I think these players are pretty excited about getting back into the season as well. I don't think they want to go through another open date and some of the things that we did fundamentally this week. So really looking forward to the challenge, having the opportunity to be here at homecoming, and for me, experience my first homecoming here at Louisiana Tech, but excited about the week. What questions can I answer for anybody?
How much of this week is a turning point in the season for you guys? That coming off the bye week, all the things that you worked on, how much of this game and this week is a turning point in the season for you?
I don't know as it's much turning point as much as it is progress. I'd certainly like to see us make progress. We've talked about one of our battle cries has been kind of, we got to keep getting better. We got to, as a work in progress with so many of those new guys, I want to see improvement. I want to see improvement as a football team and what we're doing on game day. And a lot of those fundamental things I talk about, staying square, keeping a base, making sure we're in our gap, some of those things that we've given up a lot of big plays here in the last couple weeks just because we've struggled with a fundamental thing of playing free safety. We talked about at UTEP giving up 2 posts for touchdowns. Both of them we had a middle safety called in our defense. I understand when you give up a post for a touchdown and you don't have a middle field player. But those aren't the things that you can do when you call a defense that should put somebody in the middle of the field. So things like that, I just want to see progress. I think this is a good team. It'll be a great challenge, but I keep saying that for us right now in our first year, I think as much as anything, it's about a faceless opponent. It's about us playing ourselves and going out and executing and doing the things that we need to do. And we're going to have to go play a physical, emotional, passionate football game, but we're going to have to play really fundamentally sound as well. So the way we've tried to break the season up is kind of the first 6 games, hit this open date, then make it a 2-game season, and then we'll get another evaluation opportunity with the next open date before we finish the Final Four. So right now we're in a 1-game mentality. We'll take this one and then FIU, and then we'll have an opportunity to have another open date and kind of assess where we are at that point.
Is it easier to teach young players fundamentals when they've been out on the field compared to the spring and the fall practice once they've had some game experience? Does it make this week that much more productive?
I don't know that it's so much that they're easier to teach as much as their learning curve is so much greater than somebody that's been coached fundamentally for 3 or 4 years. At that point, it's kind of a talent situation. But for a lot of these younger players that are very talented, those fundamentals become critical. So I think it's kind of the learning curve. When you start at base 0, you can go a long way. But even a lot of the upperclassmen that are at an 80 can go to an 85. But for a lot of these young players that have not played college football before this first 6-game stretch, and even guys like I was kind of hoping Ryan Higgins could get a lot of this work. It would have been a great opportunity for him, but with him missing most of practice, I mean, Paul Harris got an awful lot of reps in this open date, which you never know. It's not just for this game, but it's getting your football team ready for the final 6 games. So we didn't spend this week just on North Texas, but we spent it on the final 6 games and those fundamentals, and I think we made a lot of strides.
Coach, when you look at North Texas schematically on defense, what are they doing that's giving them so much success?
They know what they're doing. They're a 4-3 quarter-based team. They're very aggressive. They roll downhill since they don't do a lot of things. What they do really well. They understand the weaknesses to it. They'll mix in just enough so they're not in it every play, so you can't just attack that. But I would say 80 or 90%, they're going to be in a 4-3 quarters mentality. And I think their players have bought into that. I think they execute it very well. And it's not what they do as much as how well they do it. Those fundamental things that we talk about. Because football is not about drawing lines all over the board. It's about being able to execute those lines that you draw, and that's what they do such a good job of.
When I think of quarters defense, I think of the term that's used a lot in football these days, the bend but don't break. Is that really kind of their mentality?
No. In the quarters, there's 2 ways to play quarters. You can play quarters very passive with your safeties being deep. But for them, it's a great run defense as well. I mean, when you look at them, they roll those safeties downhill, as I talk about, really impressed with their physical nature and their aggressiveness at safety. I think they do a really nice job, but they are not a bend but don't break. That would be the farthest thing from what they are. They take quarters more to a 4 across the board flat structure with the safeties rolling downhill being bonus linebackers more than they do being 4 guys deep in a prevent coverage. It's more of an aggressive quarters coverage that they play, and they do a nice job. And you look at Skladany's had success everywhere he's been. I know Dan McCarney has been involved with this defense very much so, and turned around Iowa State and now North Texas, and they know it very well, and they do it extremely well.
When you say that about them rolling the safeties down, does that make it even more important to make plays down the field in the passing game?
When given the opportunity, you got to be able to hit those passes down the field. We talked about that in the first 4 games. I mean, when you look at us statistically, our yards don't match our points. We're not being very productive with our point totals, but that's because we're really not hitting a lot of teams with big plays way down the field for scores. It seems like we drop that opportunity, we just overthrow that opportunity, we lead them outside just a little bit more. We just haven't been able to efficiently be able to hit those home run balls down the field. And when given an opportunity, you've got to be able to take advantage. You can't drop back and just chunk it down the field because they're one of the better teams in the league in time of possession and controlling the ball. And so you can't just drop back and chunk it down the field the whole time. But you're going to have to hit those opportunities when you do get them.
When you some of the success you guys had against UTEP, having said that, do you think you fully established what your offensive identity is moving forward?
You know, I wish we were really consistent and good at doing something. I mean, you look at it at Army, we were able to hit some big plays down the field, and then Andrew Gilliott gets injured, and so he misses the UTEP game, and then we were able to kind of hang our hat a little bit more on the running game and see improvement with the offensive line and being able to control the ball a little bit more. I'm sure as they're coming into this, they're saying we're going to have to make them beat us left-handed. We're going to have to stop their strength, which is their running game, and so I'm sure those safeties will be that much more flat-footed, rolling downhill on us, which is going to go back to us being able to execute the ball down the field. And so I don't know that it's, wow, we've made that much progress that we're there. That's what we're going to see is how much progress we made in this football game. But hopefully we become a little bit more balanced, be able to take what a defense can give us and be able to execute some of those plays down the field.
And then you say that they're a ball control kind of offense.
Yes.
Makes you think back to Army, which that's exactly what Army wanted to do. You can't squander early opportunities then in the first quarter. How important is that for your football team?
I think it's
Saturday?
really important to get off to a fast start in this game. I do, because when you look at, as well as they run the ball, they rushed for over 300 yards this week against Middle Tennessee, controlled the ball. Their time of possession is very strong, but I think it's going to be critical. I mean, I meant to talk about a little bit more about their special teams, because you look at not only are they strong on defense in there, but if you don't get out to a fast start, they have broken something in almost every single football game from a special team standpoint. Put on the film against Georgia. They return a kickoff for a touchdown against Georgia. They block a punt for a touchdown against Georgia. Their punt returner is number 3rd in the country in punt returns, averaging 19 yards a return, I believe it is. Chancellor is also their kickoff return. He's ranked 7th in the country in kickoff returns. Very explosive special teams players where they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to get some points somewhere in special teams with some really explosive players and some of the things that they do. So I think it's really important that we get out to a fast start. I don't think this is going to be a game where you want to sit there and stand in the middle of the ring, and just say, okay, it's a punt battle, because they are explosive in some field position games with special teams. So I think it's going to be important that we get off to a fast start and that we're able to convert on some of those big play opportunities early.
Do you have a timetable for Kevin? Could this possibly keep him out into November?
What's the date today? Middle of October. Probably be pretty close. I would imagine that's about when it looks like maybe the second open date. We'll get a little bit better evaluation, but it is a high ankle sprain, and it was a bad one, and we're just going to have to see how he heals. He was even in a boot or in a cast. They ended up casting it, even though it wasn't broken. Just trying to stabilize it to see if we can get that thing to settle down just a little bit and get some of the swelling out of the leg. So I would imagine that it will at least be the open date before we are even talking about where he is at that point.
You mentioned the ligament possibility last week. Any updates with that? I mean, was there?
High ankle sprain, which is, and I don't know the exact term, I'm not a doctor, but it's a high ankle sprain, and it's the ligaments and everything that go with the high ankle sprain that makes it, which causes all the swelling. So at this point, that's all, it's a high ankle sprain. It's not that they found excessive ligament damage in the ankle. It's a high ankle sprain,
Coach, when you
whatever that means. Whatever ligaments or cartilage or bones or whatever are involved with that.
when you look at your special teams, of course, DJ Banks had the muff punt against UTEP, and then Andrew Guillotte, your backup punt returner, he's questionable for Saturday.
Well, you look out there, you got a true freshman back there catching punts for you as you're on your third punt returner. And as we put Tevin King back on kickoff returns to try and get some explosiveness there with an Andrew Guillotte, now you're down to your third kickoff return guy. So it makes it hard to create any stability, and it's part of teaching all over again, the blocking scheme, where I need to hit it, what I'm looking for, and there's nothing like seeing live plays. You know, there's nothing like seeing live plays. It's very hard to simulate special teams. That's why you see special teams making such a difference early in the season, because it is very hard to simulate that in a big picture with 11 guys running down the field full speed and 11 guys blocking and doing it live. So right now we're still searching. I don't know who will be our kick returner and punt returner. I feel very comfortable that Trent Taylor will go back there and catch a football. And I think right now I'll probably stay with Trent and continue to get him more and more work back there. But I don't know which direction we're going to go on kickoff return.
When you mentioned Trent Taylor, how much will we see him on offense if Andrew Guillotte is limited Saturday?
Well, with Andrew Guillotte's injury, it certainly opens the door for a guy like Trent Taylor, who's gotten some experience in the first part of the season. He's played 8, 10, 12 plays on offense. I think you'll definitely see that role start to increase as we go forward with the injury to Andrew and the unknown with him right now, just the uncertainty on whether or not he'll play.
Has Trent turned into kind of a crucial player for you even at a young age? I mean, 7 of his 9 catches are for first downs or touchdowns this year.
Well, I think he's done a really good job in the limited role that we've given him. I would love to be able to answer yes to that question after this game, seeing him in a full-time role and being able to see him as a punt returner and given the opportunity to make some things happen there, given the opportunity to play a bigger role in the offense. I think he's done a great job with the limited role that we've given him, but we've expanded that tremendously. And I think guys like him are the guys that benefited the most from this open date, because they were able to get so much more experience in the offense to feel that much more comfortable so they can go make some plays for us out there on game day. But Trent Taylor's a very talented individual. He's a very smart football player. He's a heady football player. Reminds me a lot probably of a young Andrew Guillotte and Hunter Lee and guys like that are just football players out on the field. They're tough, they're physical, they're smart, they understand the game, and they understand where to fit in it. And I'm excited about his future here.
You hear the term self-scout a lot during
Yes.
the bye week.
Yes.
You know, when you go through that process, obviously you do it throughout the season, but this week, what type of things did you find and what did you target?
What you do a little bit more during this time of the year in a self-scout is you have the opportunity to watch all your cut-ups. You can self-scout yourself on paper and say, okay, when we get in this formation, we have a tendency to run this play, or when we're in these down and distances, we have a tendency to run these plays. And so you try and get tendency breakers as you go through the course of the year. But when you get into the open date, what you have a chance to do is really evaluate where are you breaking down on the inside zone? Where are you breaking down in 3 deep? What are the things that we need to work on this week? What are the things that we really need to improve on when executing the different plays that we're calling, either on offense or defense? And that's where the self-evaluation really helps when you get into an open day, because you really have a chance to look at some things. And I think the breakdown for us, it wasn't so much schematically where we're trying to reinvent the wheel and you're going to see 3 new formations and 3 new defenses that we've come up with in the open date that's going to be the magic wand. I think more than anything, it's what I talked about earlier, we've got to do a better job of executing where those lines are drawn. And I think that was the thing that probably came up more than anything, is it's not so much the play that's called on either side of the ball, but it's being able to execute what we're trying to do. And I do think we're improving and getting better from that standpoint.
Given everything that you've been through this season and your expectations going into the season, would you evaluate how you think you guys have progressed and how you think this team is right now in terms of your record? And
Yeah, you know, when you look at and evaluating where we are right now, being through 6 games, probably disappointed we're not 4-2. I mean, when I go back and look at this season and say you go to NC State, you've got a couple young guys in the secondary and give up some early big plays and turn the ball over and get in a lopsided game. But then coming back and beating Lamar and having an opportunity, having really golden opportunities that we didn't take advantage of with Kansas and Tulane with the turnovers. And that's probably the thing. Said they're going into this weekend, there were only 2 teams in the country that had fumbled double digits. That were 10 or more times. Now, we've fumbled 10 times and we've lost 10 of them. So, I mean, we have not had a very good success rate when the ball gets on the ground to falling on it. But I think us and Idaho are the only 2 teams that have fumbled the ball 10 times or more that going into this last weekend. I don't know if anybody surpassed that with these last weekend's games, but Idaho's 1-5 and we're 2-4. It's not magic, you know. I mean, you've got to hold on to that football if you want to win. And NC State, we had 2 turnovers going into the red zone. Kansas, we had 2 turnovers going into the red zone. There's an opportunity to put 14 points on the board in each one of those games, which is going to change the outcome. And so from that standpoint, you know, at Tulane, we fumbled the ball on our own 1-yard line that gave them 7 points. I mean, some things like that are probably, when I say disappointed that we have not done a better job of protecting the football. Because I think if we would have done that to this point, in a worst case scenario, you're 4-2 and feeling pretty good about where you are right now. If we would have had the opportunity to win 1 or 2 of those games, and you're 2-0 in the league and getting excited about North Texas. So I just want to make sure that at the end of this 6-game stretch, we're not sitting there with the same regrets that we have after the first 6. But I am encouraged with, as I've talked about, the attitude, the work habits, the mindset of these players to keep getting better and to keep improving. And I think a lot of that goes back to the leadership with the senior class and the job that they're doing and the attitude that they have, and a lot of the underclassmen following them. So there's some things I'm encouraged with, but there's some things that I wish we would have done better in the first 6.
I know a lot of coaches, you know, will say, kind of coach speak, say they like to be balanced offensively, you know, run and pass. But in a perfect world, what is your offensive identity, or what is Tech's offensive identity like, if you could have it your way?
Well, right now, I mean, with the freshman quarterback, I think it's hard to say that we're known for what they did a year ago. Colby Cameron as a freshman was not Colby Cameron as a senior. You know, what he did as a senior was phenomenal, and the year that he had last year was phenomenal. But I think asking Ryan Higgins to come in a freshman situation and match that type of productivity is unrealistic. And so I don't think right now hanging our hat on an inexperienced group of receivers, an inexperienced offensive line, and an inexperienced quarterback is to throw it all over the field. So I would say after the last game that we are a run-oriented football team, especially after the UTEP game. But I think when we talk about balance, it's not that you want to throw it and run it equally, as much as it is you want to take advantage, be able to execute and take advantage of what a defense gives you. Because if you're a run team that can't throw it, eventually you're going to have a lot of hats in the box, and it's going to be very difficult to run it. You're going to have to be able to throw it with some success to be able to win a football game. And so for us right now, I would say that we are with a back like Kenneth Dixon, as special as he is and the way that he runs, and with what Blake Martin has been doing, stepping in for an injured Tevin King, and the way that our offensive line has improved in the running game, I would say we are a run-oriented football team first. But I would like to see us be able to throw the ball with some more productivity than we have.
Anything else?
Coach, when you look at this conference with, I mean, East Carolina losing on the road to Tulane, Tulane's probably better than everybody originally thought they were. And then you look at, we talked about you wish you were 4-2 now.
Yep.
How even do you think this conference is?
Balanced. I've said it from being in this league before, and I've used that analogy before, and I used it at East Carolina all the time. I always felt like this league was like NASCAR. I mean, everybody has the same size engine. It's just who does the best job of driving it that week. And I think that's what this league is like. I mean, anybody can beat anybody on a given day. It's not always the most talented team, and I think that's what makes this league so hard to pick, is the balance from the top to bottom, because I think there's a number of teams that have a chance to be successful in this league, and that I think are really good quality football teams. So right now, it's certainly, we're certainly not out of it. We're not pinning all our hopes, just on, hey, they got to beat them, and we're not getting into the wish game on who's got to beat who. We just got to take care of business in what we're doing right now. But it's a great league. It's a very balanced league. It's a fun league, and it's a competitive league.
Looking at the depth chart, it looks like the Pruitt may get out there this weekend. What
Yes.
does he add to the offensive line?
You know what? Probably ability to run with it after the catch, which is something that we have not had many yards after catch or yards after contact. And I think that shiftiness and that ability to run with the ball once it's under his arm is probably something that it is something that he brings to the table more so than what we have in our outside receivers right now, and Sterling and Eddie and Richie Casey. And I think that's something that he brings to the table. And so it's a shame he got hurt, because he was really starting to emerge as a guy that could be one of the stars offensively when he went down. And it's kind of been a slow, long climb back for him, but it's nice to see him out there running around and being a little bit more full speed.
Hi, Coach. I know the last question. I know you as players and coaches don't like to look ahead or anything, but
Right.
I mean, it's hard to ignore these next 3 games in your schedule. It's probably your best chance at being able to put something together. How important is this 3-game stretch before you guys face Rice to put in a winning streak and get your team the confidence, the next man up mentality?
Yeah, I think it'll go a long way if we have any desires in winning the conference. Or compete for the conference. I think these next 3 games are critical. But I think the last 3 will be critical if we have any dream of getting there as well. That's one of the things, every game we have left is a conference game. And I think you play your non-conference schedule to learn a little bit about your football team and gain some experience so you can get into the conference race. And that's where we are right now. And it's unfortunate we dropped the ball a couple times, not physically, but we dropped the ball on a couple things. And we're not sitting here 2-0, but we're not. We can't look backwards. We got to look forwards, and we got to learn from it. We got to grow from it. And I think this football team is excited to get back into the conference race, get back onto the field. And as we've looked at it, we're going through a 2-game season, one at a time. And then once we go through these 2 games, we'll get a chance to reassess and see where everything where everything falls out, and who plays who and who beats who, and what the standings look like as we go into that final 4-game stretch. So right now, I think these next 2, as we've labeled it, are really critical for us making sure that we can make a run at it here at the very end.
All right.